Hey, how's it going everyone? Michael back with another video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to import a multi-select choice field from an Excel sheet. If you enjoy Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Teams, and SharePoint videos, feel free to subscribe because I'll be putting out more videos in those areas. And here's my intro. Alright, so you want to import a multi-select choice field from an Excel sheet. And what I mean by that is I have my Excel sheet right here, this test data I'm going to be working with. I'm talking about fields that are separated by commas or a delimiter. So my delimiter in this case is a comma. And for this item field, I want it to be a choice field, but I have multiple choices in this field. So I want it to show up in my SharePoint list as multiple choices. And to do this, you need to use Power Automate and separate them into an array and then append them and put them into in the column. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. And I'm going to show you how to do a few other tips in this video. One of those is actually importing data that has missing dates. You have to use a special custom expression for this. So I want to go ahead and start importing this Excel sheet. And to do that, I'm just going to go to SharePoint, new at the top, new list. I'm going to import it from Excel. So this will basically give me a structure to import my data to. I don't want to use the data that comes with it, and I'll show you that in a second. So my Excel sheet is stored in marketing orders, and it's the orders.xlsx. You should be using XLSX. Some of the Excel connectors won't work with older file types of Excel. Let's go ahead and press next. It's going to try to create a SharePoint list with the correct column types and everything. So we're just going to go through this. So title field is my order ID. That's fine because it's a unique ID. Order date, it's importing this as a number. This is actually a date field and it's importing it as serial format. So I want to go ahead and click on date and time, and hopefully it imports correctly like that. Region, I also want this to be a choice field, so we have to fill in those choices. The rep, that could be a single line of text, that's fine. The item, I want this to be a choice field as well. Units, I want this to be a single line of text because I prefer single line of text. It's a lot easier. And for unit cost, it looks like we can do numbers, so let's go ahead and do number for that. And for the SharePoint list name, I'll just keep it orders, and I'll show it in my site navigation on the left-hand side for easy access. All right, so I don't want to use this list, and the reason is because I need to create these choice fields. And if you look at this choice field right now, these aren't separated in choices. They're separated by commas. That's just one string in there. So we need to fix that. So in my region, let's go ahead and do filter by. We have 3 regions, central, east, and west. So I'm going to go to column settings and just fill in those choices. So we had central, east, west, and I want to distinguish these with colors because I think it looks nice and users like it a lot. So as you can see, we have the regions in color coded. And if you look at the items, we don't have these choices right now. So let's go ahead and go to filter. And we actually have to do binder, desk, pen, pen set, and pencil. So these are the 5 choices I need to do. I will go ahead and take a screenshot of this really quick. All right, so let's go ahead and fill in these choices. So in my screenshot, in my second screen, we have binder, desk, pen, pen set, and pencil. So we have our 5 choices. Let's just go ahead and put some colors attached to these. And click on save. So as you can see, the ones that have multiple choices, they're not coming up with any colors. That's because they're contained in one string, and we want to separate those strings into separate choices. So this is all we have to do with our SharePoint list right now. It looks good. We just had to make those choices, fill in those choices. So we can go ahead and go into Power Automate to start our flow to import this data. So we want to do a new flow, and we're just going to do an instant cloud flow because I want to import this one time. And we'll do import from Excel, multi-choice. All right, manually trigger a flow. All right, so in Power Automate, our first step is going to be to initialize a variable, because this is the variable we want to store the array in. So initialize variable, and we're just call this var array, and the type is going to be array. There's no value associated with this currently. So I will go ahead and create a scope right now so I can store a few actions all in one so my flow doesn't get too long and too complicated. So for this step, I'm going to rename it, delete previous items, and I'm just going to get that list and delete all those items beforehand. And after you run this once, you can go ahead and remove this step. But we want to delete all those items because we don't want duplicate items in that list right now. So it's marketing, then it's our orders list. I want to get all the orders. And if you have over, let's say, 100 items, you want to turn on pagination and put a threshold that's higher than the amount of items in your SharePoint list. For me, it's only like 50, so I don't have to worry about it. And we'll go ahead and do delete item, site address, marketing, list name, orders, ID. It's going to be the ID from the get items. And that will put it in apply to each because this go through each row and delete each of those items. So that should be all set right there. So it's going to delete all the items in the SharePoint list. And once we run this once, we can go ahead and remove that step. Or if you want to leave that in there, if you want a clean refresh every week, you can go ahead and leave that in there. It's really up to you if you want to delete all the previous items. But I just want to get rid of the imported data already because it's incorrect. All right, so let's do another scope so we can make our flow look pretty. And this will be get data from Excel. And let's go ahead and start getting that data. So the Excel will be Excel online. And I want to list rows present in a table. So make sure in your Excel sheet that the data is in a table. If it's not, you won't have this table design at the top. It won't show. So you want to do Control T and make sure you have all the data selected and convert it to a table, because this is the only way you can list the rows present in a table. So location, going to ask for the SharePoint site, marketing, document library. This is in my documents, and let's just go ahead and navigate to the file under marketing orders, and it is this file. And then it will open the file and look for all the tables. So all my data is in table 4. So if we go to table design, table 4 at the top left hand corner. Show advanced options, date time format. Let's just set this to ISO 8601 so the serial number won't be a problem if it tries to import it as a serial number, and that's the date field. All right, next is we want to do an apply to each. So the reason we're doing an apply to each because we want to go through each row and look at specifically at the multi-select choice field. So it would be this row. I want to look at it specifically because we have to append each of those items to an array, and we're going to separate it by the delimiter, which is a comma. So let's go ahead and use the value from the previous step. All right, so our next step is actually going to be another apply to each. And we want to get the select and output from the previous step. We want to grab the item within the value. So item. So let's go ahead and Control A, Control C this to copy this. And we want to split this up with a custom expression. So with the expression on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, we want to split it by the commas. So let's go ahead and paste the copied text. And that's just going to give us the items apply to each for the item. I should have named it item. And we want to separate this by a comma space because they're separated by commas and spaces. Go ahead and click on OK. You might be using semicolons, so instead of comma, you want to use a semicolon there. That's really what your delimiter is. And let's go ahead and append each of these split items into an array that we declared up top. So append to array variable. So that's going to be var array, and the value is going to be a curly bracket, double quotes, value, double quotes, colon, and then we want to do the current item. So let's scroll down in our dynamic content. We want the current item for apply to each number 3, because that will give us the item. So it'll give us pencil, and then it'll give us binder. Let's go ahead and close this up with a curly bracket. So it's going to go through each of those values and just put them, append that to the array variable we declared up top, var array. And let's go ahead and create our item. So create item, and that's going to be in our SharePoint list, marketing, orders. And we'll just go ahead and map all the list rows present in table. First though, item value right here, it doesn't show what we need. So let's go ahead and save this. All right, when it's saved, let's go back into our SharePoint list, go to item, column settings, edit, more options, and we have to set this to allow multiple selections. Since that's not highlighted, it's not showing us the option we need in Power Automate. So save it. Let's get out of this flow, go back into edit so it refreshes the SharePoint list. All right, let's go back in here, create item. So we want to go ahead and we'll just start with the item field. Let's go ahead and switch to input entire array. And that is going to be our var array. And let's just go ahead and map the other values out. Order ID, order date. We'll have to come back for order date because we need to fix that. And that's because there's some blank values in there. I did that on purpose so I can show you guys a little tip. Prep, units, and unit cost. All right, so for order date, we need to do a custom expression here. So let's go ahead and copy this. So Control A, Control C, and then we'll delete it. And the custom expression is going to be if equals parenthesis, and then we want to paste our copy text, remove the curly brackets and the @ symbol, and scroll the way back down. So put a comma after the bracket, and for the object, we want to compare it to a null, pretty much a blank value, and that's just 2 single quotes. So if that's true, if there's nothing there, it's going to return true, and that will allow us to put a value in our if statement. That's just going to be null because we don't want anything there, because if you try to put a blank string in a date field, it's going to fail the flow. So after, you want to do a comma, and then you just want to paste the copy text again. Let's go ahead and remove the curly brackets and the @ symbol and click on OK. And I will just highlight this and bring it up in Notepad really quick. All right, hopefully you guys can see this. This is the full formula right here, and pretty much it will just be different. Whatever you copied, you just want to replace it with these two. So items. All right, let's get out of here. So the create item should be done now. Let's go ahead to add an action because we need to clear the variable after it's done. Because if we don't, it's just going to keep appending more and more values as the flow continues. So it's going to append all these into one array and just keep putting that into the SharePoint, which we don't want. Let's go ahead and do a set variable. So we want to set our variable var array to null. So in the expression, let's go to null. Click on OK, and this flow should be done. So I'll just go through it one more time for y'all. Manually triggering the flow, we're declaring a variable, which is var array in the type of array. And that's to store our multi-select choice field. in the delete previous item scope, we're just getting all the items from our orders list and just going through each of them and deleting them. And that's just because I want to get rid of the imported data automatically. In our next scope, get data from Excel, you want to list rows present in a table. So that's going to get us each of these rows one by one. And our apply to each two, we're getting the value from list rows present in the table. So it's going to get us the first value, then the second, and then the third, then the fourth. And we're going to do another apply to each for the split. So we're splitting each of these items. So it'd be these three we're splitting, and then we're going to append those into an array, which will create an item in our SharePoint list. This isn't right. So this shouldn't be in an apply to each. I press the unit cost for the SharePoint connector, get items at the top. So this should be unit cost, list rows present in a table. And we need to take this create items out of the apply to each. So let's go ahead and drag this up and then delete our apply to each. So that's why, good thing I look back at this because I would have ran it and I would have looked like an idiot. So our create items, so we weren't using the get items and the delete previous items. I accidentally misclicked the wrong one because it didn't list the Excel connector one. It only listed the SharePoint one. So if it doesn't list the one you want, you can manually type it in and it will look for everything. So that one should be good to go now. We have the item. We have our custom formula for order since there's some blank order values in here. And we are setting the variable after it's done back to null. So when it goes through the next row, it has a blank array. So it'll be pencil, and it'll go to row 7, it'll be blank, and then it'll pick up the binder pencil, and then it runs again, it'll go to row 8, and then the array is blank, it'll pick up pencil. Let's go ahead and run this to see what happens. The longest step in this one would probably be the delete items and create items. So we'll go ahead and save it. Click on test manually. Continue. Run flow. And let's just refresh it and watch it run. So right now it's deleting all the present items in our SharePoint list. So now it's creating all the items in our SharePoint list. So it looks like another mistake here. So it looks like, if you can see, it's creating each time there's a multi-choice field, it's creating 2 items. We don't want that. We want it to put it in 1 item. So let's go ahead and check out our flow, get data from Excel, apply to each. So I don't think I want this in this. I don't think I want the create item action within the apply to each. I want it in the apply to each for each Excel row. So let me go ahead and pull this out. I'm just going to drag and drop it outside of that. I'm going to drag and drop the set array out of it. All right, so let's go ahead and rerun this. So basically, it's going to append all those items to that multi-choice field, and then it's going to create the array. And since I have the delete previous items still in here, that should be fine. I'm going to delete all the bad data. Go ahead and test this. Run flow. So it's going to go ahead and delete all the previous items in here. Then it should start creating all the items. Ooh, and there we go. So a little troubleshooting we had to go through, and that's how it is with flows. Sometimes you'll get it right, and sometimes you'll have to troubleshoot it a little bit. I usually never get my flows correct on the first time, and it's just pretty much just problem solving the whole way through it. We figured out that it was creating multiple titles, and it wasn't creating the items in a single line with the multiple choices. But we troubleshoot it through, and it looks like it's creating all the items in separate rows now, which is awesome. So yeah, since we had, as if we look in row number 12, we had 4 items in this row. So pencil, desk, pen, binder. We scroll up, we have it right here. Pencil, desk, pen, binder. So that's how you would import an Excel sheet with a multi-choice select field. It takes a little work to figure it out, but once you figure it out, it can be very beneficial. You just have to format your Excel sheet to be separated by a delimiter for the choice field you want to work with. So I'll just show you the completed flow. So if you guys like the video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions about the flow or the workflow, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will catch you in the next video.